The Big Picture, a Christian insight on the world of film, television and popular culture with magazine editor Ben McEachern and scriptwriter Mark Hadley. 3D glasses on, amps to 11, screens to maximum. Get ready for The Big Picture.
Sometimes Ben likes to think that he's had a major impact on the world, when he's going to have a major impact on my character, that's on my patience, all sorts of things. But
please go on. More about you, Mark, and less about my impact on the world.
Yeah, see, there you are again.
Always about thinking about my major impact, yes.
Someone who's actually had a major impact on the world is Steve Jobs, the tech visionary behind so many of the eye gadgets that now rule our lives. Well, Steve Jobs, the movie, is a new release starring Michael Fassbender as the Apple man himself. And it's up for a few Oscars. Steve Jobs is a biopic that gets personal about whether being a success means that you also have to be a total jerk.
What do? You're not an engineer. You're not a designer. You can't put a hammer to a nail. I built the circuit board. The graphical interface was stolen. So how come 10 times in a day, I read Steve Jobs as a genius? What do you do?
Musicians play their instruments. I play the orchestra. I hear you've been worse than usual this morning. I didn't think that was possible.
It's a system error.
Fix it.
Fix it?
Yeah.
We're not a pit crew at Daytona. This can't be fixed in seconds.
You didn't have seconds. You had 3 weeks. The universe was created in a third of that time.
Well, someday you'll have to tell us how you did it.
Zing!
Wow.
And that's, man, the dialogue in this film is fantastic. As you'd expect, this is from screenwriter Aaron Sorkin, most famous for The West Wing and then everything through to The Social Network that he's touched. His dialogue always sounds the same, doesn't it? But in this movie, it really sings. I think he does a really great job, very well situated in the world of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs in the movie land is set across 3 different time periods, 1984, 1988, and 1999. And all 3 periods, we see Steve Jobs as he's about to launch some major product. 2 of them are Macintosh, Apple Macintosh, and one of them is another one that he was working for in between. And at each product launch, before he's about to give a speech, this movie in thirds focuses on Steve Jobs as he basically gets into a fight or some kind of debate or some really eloquent speech with all these major figures in his life, everyone from the people who work closest with him to a woman who claims that he is the mother of her daughter. And so it's a little bit forced. Let's just say that. This is definitely a movie. This is as Aaron Sorkin was describing it, saying he's not trying to go for a straight picture, a snapshot of Steve Jobs. It's more of a portrait that he's trying to give. He's trying to demonstrate a man's character as opposed to being 100% beholden to the truth.
So it's not like Jobs, which was very much a straight biopic.
But the one with Ashton Kutcher as Steve Jobs,
like beginning to end.
I didn't actually see that.
Started with his almost birth and then finished with his death. Yeah.
No, it definitely isn't. And I heard that version of Steve Jobs really sets out to effectively paint him like a saint.
Is this not a loving tribute?
No, it's not a loving tribute, but I don't know if it's unloving. I found it a bit hard to tell. I don't know heaps about Steve Jobs. I went and tried to research him a little bit after seeing the movie. I found that, as you can expect from the way I just described the setup of the movie in these 3 stages and the fact that all these characters in his life are forced into these situations that didn't actually occur in real life, there's that didn't actually happen in real life. These situations didn't occur. But then a lot of the things that happen in amongst their exchanges, everything from some of the stuff that Steve Jobs says or gets accused of, didn't actually happen either. There's a lot of truth that's slipped through. So you could allege that Aaron Sorkin and director Danny Boyle, who's I think best known for Slumdog Millionaire, that the 2 of them got together and tried to do a hatchet job on Steve Jobs. I don't think so, though. I didn't feel like the movie was trying to tear the guy down. But do
you come away thinking Steve Jobs, visionary?
You do, because he often tells you that over and over again, and it's true. He the guy was, and you can't really get past that. He does come off as an arrogant jerk for most of the movie, but quite a likable one. I think they tried to paint a guy who was so fiercely driven by what he believed about himself and what he wanted to do that everything else didn't matter in his life. And Michael Fassbender does an excellent job of being the charismatic center of a self-centered universe.
So that explains the Oscar nominations. But you basically...
that goes down to the big speeches.
But you're basically saying that the structure kind of gets a bit in the way of it.
Yes and no. It's interesting that it does cram so many issues into the movie. I think that's a good thing. I think Aaron Sorkin's made a wise choice of how do I represent a man? Well, I'm going to use these devices of all these different product launches and put him up at different points in his life and demonstrate what was going on for him personally and in business. You go, oh, that's great. And you can bring in all kinds of stuff. But then the negative is I think it is too forced. And also you sit there kind of rolling your eyes a bit thinking, again? Like you're having a stand-up argument with your daughter again? You're having another fight with this lady who you keep saying isn't the mother of your child again? That gets a bit draining on you, but the actors carry it off beautifully, and Aaron Sorkin can write his way out of any issue, really, any problem that he faces in the screenplay that he set up.
Let's talk about the person we're basically meeting. Steve Jobs, genius. Okay, no trouble there. Do geniuses have to be jerks to get through? You talk about this force of nature character. Do they have to be like that to win?
Look, I'd say no. What is Steve Jobs saying? I don't think it's saying that either. I think it's definitely trying to suggest that there can be... There's a great line in the movie that says, it's not binary, you can be decent and gifted at the same time. I think that's ultimately the message coming through about Steve Jobs. Almost a bittersweet message that you see the amazing success that this man had, but at the same time, you see how the way he went about that success basically tore down everything around him. And I think that's a bit strained in the film. It's a bit over the top, exaggerated, but there's definitely truth in that about Steve Jobs. So I think walking away from that as a viewer, it'd be great to talk about with all your mates on this topic is, what do you think success actually is? What would it take to achieve that? And go back to this question, do you think you can be decent and gifted at the same time? Is that possible? And Steve Jobs, the man in this movie, would suggest no. And I reckon it's a great one to talk about. What do you think? Because what actually makes for success in our lives and at what cost? And Steve Jobs raises all that.
Okay, well, Steve Jobs stars Michael Fassbender, Kate Winslet, Seth Rogen, and those early models of Mac computers that now look so dorky and funny.
They really do.
It's rated M for some swearing and mature themes and Max.
Max.
The Big Picture is a Bible Society Australia production and part of Hope 1032's family of podcasts and vodcasts.